بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
إذا وقعت الواقعة ليس لوقعتها كاذبة خافضة رافعة.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. Congratulations for the waladat of sayed.abbas.raz, the best of ladies of paradise. We continue our journey with discovering more about the hereafter through Surah Al-Waqia. Today we're in lesson 15 and verses 68 to 70. When you look at the different proofs that God gives for the hereafter, one of the proofs that we come into today is this verse, is that we understand that Allah answers the unbelievers of the hereafter from answering them with water, and how water reaches us. And here you can see the slide, the water cycle. So you look at this verse, أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ الْمَاءَ الَّذِي تَشْرَبُونَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. And have you seen the water that you drink? So God gives us examples of something that we are so crucial in need of, and every day, more than any type of food, we are in need of drink. A person can go out maybe for 1 month without eating, but maybe only a few days without drinking. So water is an essential part of human life. And God mentions, and this is something that is relatable to everyone. Everyone drinks water. So the examples of God in the Quran are for everyone. It doesn't matter what continent they are, what race or nationality. Everyone on earth needs water. And even higher than this, that what scientists are saying, that any biological being needs water. أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ الْمَاءَ الَّذِي تَشْرَبُونَ. And have you seen the water that you drink? So look at this water every time you drink. And how many times have we thought of God when we drink water? أَأَنْتُمْ أَنزَلْتُمُوهُ مِنَ الْمُزْنِ. Is it you who brought it down from the clouds? Al-Muzn in Arabic means clouds. Have you brought it down from the clouds? Am nahnul munzilun. Or is it we who bring it down? So we are understanding from this verse, just like the previous verses, that the rububiyyat and the lordship of God incorporates every detail of this beautiful creation. And that God attributes the very details in the water cycle and the administration of earth and the galaxies to himself. It's not as if we believe that God has created and let go. That God is administrating, and that there's only one effective force in this world, and that is God. And we talked about Tawheedul Af'al, meaning that the actions that happen are all one, all from God. And we said how important it is to truly believe that everything is happening by God. True, we don't negate our free will. It is a vertical hierarchy. We are part of the chain of causes. But the real cause is Allah, because He's giving us creation, sustaining us, giving us free will. So therefore, in reality, everything that is happening is from the power and knowledge of God. So even rain, when we say it rains, and a lot of times we think that it rains randomly. and there's a storm here, a storm there, a drought here, a drought there, that this entire cycle, and whoever gets rain, whoever doesn't get rain, all of this is by Allah, the powerful Allah, the merciful Allah, and the wise Allah. أَأَنْتُمْ أَنزَلْتُمُوهُ مِنَ الْمُزْنِ أَمْ نَحْنُ الْمُنزِلُونَ? Is it you who brought it down from the clouds, or is it we who bring it down? لَوْ نَشَاءُ جَعَلْنَاهُ أُجَاجًا فَلَوْلَا تَشْكُرُونَ. If we willed, we could have made water bitter. So why are you not grateful? Because this is an interesting fact. Where does most of the clouds form from? From salt water. So when you look at it, and you look at this water cycle here, you see the ocean, and you see that when the ocean reaches a certain temperature, that there is, evaporation, and this evaporation happens leaving the salt in the sea, not carrying that salt over, and that precipitation that happens is without salt in it. So that pure, filtered rainwater comes to you. So Allah says, if we wanted to, we didn't have to make it sweet. We could have also made it bitter, in a way that maybe every time you drink water, you would have to have, for example, like when you drink tea or coffee, you'd have to make it sweet. And you mix in the sugar. Some cultures, they do a lot more sugar, some do less. But regardless, God could have made it bitter. So here we understand the water cycle, the power of God controlling everything in this world. We see design. And if you look at this, and I'm sure we learned about this, of how evaporation happens, and this gets transported into clouds and water vapor, and then there's precipitation, and then this precipitation happens, and that stream comes back to the ocean, and water comes back. So this endless cycle of water on Earth, the planet that is, full of water, alhamdulillah. So when we think of this, and I want to always try to incorporate lessons from the Holy Quran and reflections to our daily lives, we come to the conclusion that God is extremely powerful. God is extremely wise. And this leads us to this slide, hopefully you can see it, is a simple proof for God's existence and the fact that you can prove God from rain. Because another thing in Arabic says, أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ, have you not seen? Like ponder. When you drink water, when you look at rain, ponder and think about it. When you ponder and think about this, you'll be led to the creator of this. Okay? So the simple proof we have is the theological argument, or argument, some say, of intelligent design. And a lot of times I go to different communities and they ask us very simply, because unfortunately in some countries atheism is spreading. So how can we understand and how can we say that God exists? One of the ways is burhanun nazm, that we understand from this verse as well, that, well, look, God is responsible for this. Why don't you see God? When you see rain, when you see evaporation, we see precipitation, condensation, all of these things, why don't you see God in it? So this is known as the argument of design. And it is the simplest and most popular argument proposed for the existence of God. And the Quran itself talks about this, construes the worldly creatures as ayahs of God. That creation are signs of God. So if you really want to think of it, and you prove this, burhanun nadh, or intelligent design, to yourself, you understand that you are filled and surrounded by the signs of God. And that everywhere you go around, you take a walk in nature, you take a walk and you go hiking, you have a good view, for example. You see that all of these, each and every one of these creations is a proof of God's existence. How? So because these are tokens which implies the existence of God. In this argument, briefly speaking, It is told that the design in the universe is a sign or a reason for the fact there is a designer who regularizes the universe. Let's break it down. This is introduction to this proof. In this argument, we invoke the universe and its design to approve the existence of God. And since the universe and its design and the regular structure are commonly intelligible and independent of any philosophical knowledge, this kind of argument is more popular. Okay. In Western traditions, there have been, criticisms by some, and we're not going to get into that too much, but let's go through the Holy Quran. So Quran in 2:164, I want you to look at this and see, is there such a proof in the Quran? So we look and see this beautiful verse, in A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Inna fi khalqis samawati wal ard wa ikhtilafil layli wan nahar wal fulk allati tajri fil bahri bima yanfa'u an-nas wa ma anzala Allahu minas sama'i min ma' فأحيا به الأرض بعد موتها وبث فيها من كل دابة وتصريف الرياح والسحاب المسخر بين السماء والأرض لآيات لقوم يعقلون. Indeed, in the creation, so Allah gives examples of what? One, in the creation of the heavens and earth. Look at the creation of it. Heavens and earth. Two, in the alternation of night and day, that there's day and night. And the ships that sail at sea with profit to men, ships that is the easiest and actually the cheapest way of sending cargo from one part of the world to the other. Four, you can say, and the water that Allah sends down from the sky. So again here, water, وَأَنزَلَ اللَّهُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً. He mentions this as a sign with which He revives the earth after its death, because water is life. Water is a sign of life. It's interesting, a side note here is that there's tradition that just how God has given life by water. The tradition says, the hadith says, that just how everything has its life by water, the heart also gets life. But you can say the water of the heart. What is the water of the heart? What gives life to the heart? The tradition says ta'ah, an obedience of God gives life to the heart. So, in hadith, water gives life to the heart, but obedience gives life to the heart, because water is pure. Water gives, that sustenance, that fulfills that need that plants and animals have. فَأَحْيَا بِهِ الْأَرْض بَعْدَ مَوْتَهَا. And you see, when rainfall comes, after a while, when there's no rain, there's a drought, and it just becomes desert, just becomes sand. Then it rains after a while, you see greenery again. وَبَثَّ فِيهَا مِنْ كُلِّ دَابَّةٍ. And you see that, and scatters therein every kind of animal. وَتَصْرِيفَ الرِّيَاحِ. And the changing of the winds. وَالسَّحَابَ الْمُسَخَّرِ. And the clouds disposed between the sky and earth. This is after mentioning all of these, Quran says, لَآيَاتٍ لَقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. These are signs, but not signs for everyone. Someone looks at these every day. This job is to look at these things and to study these things and research. But they do not come to God's existence. That group of people that look at this as a token of God's existence, as a symbol, a sign of God's existence, are the people that do ta'aqul, which is used in the Quran about, say, 40 times or more, less or more. Ya'qilun, they think, they ponder, they apply reason. And this is the reasoning that we have. So you have creation, you have these signs, but how are they signs? Because of this, one of the ways is because of the proof of design, or burhanun nazm. And how does it work? We're going to break it open. So one of the ways you can prove is this, simple proof of God. It's premised on sense and experimental data. You look at things, you observe them, you see that, there is nadhm in order over and over and over. You look at, for example, the water cycle, and is there not order in the water cycle? Or else, if it kept raining and there was no order in it and it did not come back to the seas in a way, then we would run out of water, for example. Rational, and it comes based on rational principles, conclude with a necessary existent being, an omnipotent and omniscient absolute being. So the benefit of this proof is after you prove it, you not only prove God's existence, you prove God's knowledge, and you also prove God's capability to create, Him being omnipotent in His power. So therefore, your use is in simple and convincing argument. It is like a light wooden bridge that suffices for people with less baggage to cross the river. It is in a way that when you want to be able to pass a bridge, and that bridge, for example, is light, it's not very the strongest, because there are some issues about this proof, but it is not necessarily the strongest, but it suffices for most. And if a person weighs less from sin, if a person is already inclined towards God, then this proof is sufficient for them. We have other proofs as well that are stronger. So how does this proof work? The simple proof of God's existence is this. This is the slide if you want to take a picture of. This summarizes it very easily. So the premise is this, and let's see if you agree with all of these. One is the universe is included in design. The universe is included of regular phenomena. You look at the world and you see that there is there's order in phenomena. You see, for example, the water cycle, there's complete order, for example. You look at light and day, you see that it is in order. 2, each regularity requires a regulator. You see that each being or each order needs order by itself, someone that regularizes it. For example, if you go outside and you go hiking and you see 3 bricks on top of one another, if you see these 3 bricks, you would never say that they just happen to be on top of each other. 3 bricks. You say somebody put those 3 bricks there because I see order, so therefore somebody must have done this. Therefore, there is a designer who regularizes this universe. There is a designer. So 1, we see regular phenomena in the universe. In this universe, we see regular phenomena. 2, when we say there's regularity, it needs a regulator or it needs a designer. It needs someone to design that. It needs someone to put that in order. So 3, if we see, therefore, there's a designer who regularizes this universe. The Arabic would be, I see nadhm in this world, and every type of nadhm and order needs a nadhim, one who puts it in order. So therefore, this universe has a nadhim, has a being that puts everything in order, who regularizes everything. And you understand from this, then if he is the one that is regularizing everything, putting the design in everything, then he is capable, he has wisdom, and he has power to do that. Very, simple proof. Do you have any questions so far about this proof? I see some coming later, but we're talking about Burhanun Nadh, or simple proof of existence, from this verse here that we're reading in Surah Al-Waqia about the rain. أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ الْمَاءَ الَّذِي تَشْرَبُونَ? Have you seen the water that you drink? Is it you who brought it down from the clouds, or is it we who bring it down? You see this regular order. So there's regularity here. Then who has placed this in it? You say a being that is intelligent, that is capable, must have put this in order. Just as we said, like you run into a few bricks, and when you're going hiking, stacked on one another, you say somebody must have done this. Or you look at any effect. You go to, for example, you look at a painting, and you look at the painting and you say, wow, you say, look at what a capable artist. You go to, for example, Louvre Museum in France, and you see, for example, the Mona Lisa. You say, wow, look at what this painter has done. Look at the capability of this painter. You look from the painting to the painter. But the interesting thing is we are not used to, unfortunately, because of the ghafla we have, because of the negligence we have, the unmindfulness we have. We don't look at the signs of God, the painting of God, and see the designer. And it's something that if you want to develop that high level of tawheed, that you're always with Allah, you're always looking, you're always with Him. Because, this has this ethical benefit to us, because there's taqwa and piety relies on two things. One is to be constantly aware of God. If a person is not constantly aware of God, they're not going to have taqwa, they're going to sin. You need to always be constantly reminded of God. What's one of the ways that be constantly reminded of God? Look at creation and see creator from creation. Two, we always need to think of our death and accountability. Taqwa relies on ma'ad and the hereafter. Understanding that we will die and will be accountable for whatever we did in this world. So if you have these two pillars, you have taqwa. A strong connection, remembrance of God throughout the day, and constant remembrance of death and accountability. Then I won't sin. How can I sin? God is watching me. I'm always thinking of God. And I'll always think of the hereafter, the consequences. What happens if I sin? What happens if I don't fulfill my obligations to the people, to my family, to, for example, myself even, to creation? So this is a beautiful way, and we said those that came late, that Quran actually itself in Surah Baqarah 164 talks about signs of God from heavens and earth and night and sky and ships and water, how it's been sent. لَآيَاتٍ لَقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ, that they are signs for people who apply reason. And one of those ways to understand and have reason is this: the universe is included of regular phenomena. One, that's the premise. Two, each regularity requires a designer. Three, therefore there is a designer who regularizes this universe. Very simple, very, very simple. And most people, you'd say this and say, yes, I agree. Let's talk a little bit more about this proof. So there's an analogy between human and universe. According to this way, similar to the regularity of the human artifacts, which indicates that they are made by a purposeful agency and designer, also the current regularity of the universe implies that there is a purposeful and mighty designer who regularizes the regular phenomena and creatures in the universe. There's an analogy that we understand because we are designed this way, that whenever we see something that is designed, we say, okay, there is a purposeful agency or designer. You look at, for example, your cell phones, your smartphones that are in front of you. You say that it's impossible for this just to come out by itself. The new version that exists, that there's another team that worked on this for maybe a year or whatever, and they planned and designed it. And it's impossible for you to even say the device in front of your phone or your laptop to randomly come together. So we have already in us this analogy between human and universe, meaning that when we see already, human design, there is a designer for it. And also when you see a natural design, it should be in the same way. This is this very book that you have in your hands is a sign from the author. It is not true that by reading, you are becoming aware that the writer is intelligent and has a purpose, for example. Let's talk about probability. According to the probability laws, the probability of the accidental emergence, so someone say, no, this is accident. And all of these things came together by chance and just by accident. And there's, the Big Bang, and all these things just happened to come and they all evolved into different things. So according to the probability laws, the probability of the accidental emergence of a regular construction is near the zero, and we know it is not a considerable probability that things just happen by themselves. It is not it is not an absurd idea that an encyclopedia of 100 volumes, for example, could come into existence of an effect of an explosion which came to occur in a metal mine. The fragments, which took the form of letters and through accidental encounters with pieces of paper made writing appear, and then papers also accidentally became arranged and bound into volumes. Imagine if we say this 100-volume encyclopedia came into existence by an explosion in the mine. And you just said it came together, exploded, and you say that all this, fragments took the form of letters and accidental encounters. They hit, the paper from this explosion, and it created an encyclopedia, right? So that's a good analogy. Or another analogy is like the watchmaking analogy, is that if you came across, this is European philosophy analogy, if you came across a watch with all the gears that happen, and to tell time it has to be very exact, because each movement needs to be an exact second. So you come to a watch and you open it up, and for you to say, okay, this watch just randomly came about. This watch did not have a designer manufacturer. This randomly came about. In reality, then you would say that there must have been a designer for this watch, a manufacturer for this watch. So that is in the same way the watchmaking analogy, or this encyclopedia, or some say give the example of a 747, for example. So the simple proof is deliberate in creation. Every part of it is a sign pointing to Allah. The beautiful part about this proof is when you actually think of this proof and we come in from regular order and you come into design to designer or regularizer or Nadim, you come and you start to look at everything around you through a different lens. So deliberate on creation, and every part of it is a sign pointing to Allah. So order that is observed cannot be by chance. Intelligence is required for its conception or idealization. Power is required for its execution or realization. So it needs intelligence, and also it needs power. In other words, our hearts affirm that there must be intelligibility and purpose. So remember, from this proof, you take intelligence out, you bring intelligence and power of Allah. Do you have any questions about this proof so far, and those that are watching us? Is there anything we can say? Because that is about it for understanding. I know that the Mufassirin didn't prove this verse. Actually, some of them brushed very fastly by it. But still, that from water comes clouds, right? So water comes from clouds, and then Quran mentions that from these clouds that come, God brings water for us, and then when this water comes, Quran mentions to us that are you the ones that descended, or are we the ones that descended? So we understand from this beautiful water cycle that this is another proof of God's existence. So this is a painting. Ustad Fashjan also has a painting about Karbala with the horse of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the children, and the contorted saddle of the horse, or without a saddle, and the children crying. He also, this is one of his other works of art that he drew, for example, say the Fatima, and that it's showing her that the light of God is giving her the ability to do shafa'ah, to do intercession. And everyone here, if you look down, is in need of this shafa'ah, intercession down here with the hands raising. But some are in darkness, some are in light, if you can pay attention to this. Some are in darkness, some are in light. Everyone needs intercession of Sayyidah Fatima, but it's not granted to everyone. So it comes from Sayyidah Fatima to her, from Allah, from God. God allows this intercession to happen, and then she grants this intercession. But this painting that I have here is a little, the frame, I think they squished a little bit. But what it's supposed to say here is Ain, Lam, Ya, Ali. It's supposed to say this shafa'at is not coming to everyone. This intercession is not for everyone. It's this intercession for those that are under the walayat or love of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And whoever loves Ali alayhi salam, whoever takes Ali as his mawla, that shafa'at and intercession of Sayyidah Fatima will exist. And you can look on Zoom that how much in need these people are of shafa'at. I want to share with you at the end this tradition, that if you think about it, is a beautiful tradition and it's very in-depth. Some of our scholars just about this tradition gave a few, lectures. I'm sure you've heard the tradition, but maybe you haven't necessarily understood the depth of this narration. We read, from the Prophet saying, Inna Allah yaghdabu lighadabi Fatima. God gets angry, becomes angry with the anger of Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. This tradition is in the book of Hakim al-Nishaburi. This tradition is in Amali al-Saduq. So Sunni and Shia narrate this tradition. Some Ahlul Sunnah scholars try to reject this narration because the indication of it is much more in depth than you think, and they thought that it cannot be true. This is wrong, they would say. But why would this be wrong? Inna Allah yaghdabu laqadaba Fatima. So it has two parts to it. One is that Allah is upset with the anger of Fatima. Whoever Fatima is angry with, Allah is angry with. And then this part, وَيَرْضَى لِرِضَاهَا, and Allah is content. Allah is satisfied with her satisfaction, with her contentment. Usually when we see this second part, so we have two parts. I'm going to divide it. Let's first talk about anger and then contentment. When you look at the Holy Quran, are there any verses in the Holy Quran where a prophet of God became angry and Allah did not become angry with that anger? You have the example of Prophet Yunus. And this is in Salatul Ghufayla, we read this verse. Prophet Yunus became angry with his people, but he shouldn't have. It was a tarka awla, meaning he didn't do the best thing. It wasn't a sin. He became angry with his people. وَذَنُّونَ إِذْ ذَهَبَ مُغَاضِبًا. Dhannun, a prophet of Allah, he went away angrily. So forget these people, that's it. They don't deserve the mercy of Allah. That's it. He became angry. Ghadab, if you look at the Arabic, mughadiban. Dhannun, Prophet Jonah or Yunus, became angry. And then he got punished for his anger. He got punished for his anger and leaving. فَظَنَّ أَنْ لَنْ نَقْدِرَ عَلَيْهِ. He thought that we had no power over him. Nothing would happen to him. And you see, he was punished. The whale or the fish swallowed him, and he was stuck until he does the dhikr of Yunusiyya, La ilaha illa ant, subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin, which is a very powerful dhikr. There is no God except you. Exaltations to you. I was among the harm doers. So Prophet Yunus in Quran becomes angry, but Allah does not become angry with the anger of Prophet Yunus. Sayyidah Fatima becomes angry. Tradition says Allah every time will become angry with the anger of Sayyidah Fatima, meaning that her anger is matched exactly with Allah's anger. There's no way she would become angry in a place where Allah would not want her to become angry. So her anger is only for God. So this shows you the status of Sayyidah Fatima, that even some of the prophets of God, of course not her father is the highest of all prophets, her father has a higher position than her, but she is the daughter of Prophet Muhammad, and she has this rank that wherever she becomes angry, Allah becomes angry. The second part, وَيَرْضَى لِرَضَاهَا, wherever she is content, Allah is content. Usually we say a person has a very high position in spirituality when they reach the maqam of rida. So a person reached rida, reached contentment. What does rida mean? Rida means that your life situation and circumstances that come to you from God, that you're satisfied, even if there's poverty in it, even if there's sickness in it, even if your du'as are not answered. You have rida. You're content with God's will, His plan for you. Very high position. Very high position. But this is not talking about that. It's saying we understand this, that yarda li God is become satisfied with her satisfaction. That's what the ulama of Ahlul Sunnah couldn't understand, some of them. Ibn the Hakim and Nishaburi brings in his Mustadrak with the conditions of Bukhari and Muslim. But still, they say in reality, how can this be that God is forced to be content and satisfied wherever she is satisfied? Well, the answer is this. If a perfect human being aligns their will with the will of God, and they can only be content with whatever God is content with, then her contentment is action realization and lined up with God's contentment. Therefore, wherever she is content, Allah is content. Because she reached such a high position that all her desires and wills and aspirations, everything she wants, is godly, is Rahmani. There's nothing nafsani in it. There's no others in her desires, in her contentment, in her will. It's only purely tawheed. When a person becomes al-muwahhid al-kha'id, pure muwahhid, a pure monotheist, then their will is only will of God. See, let's say the Fatima, this tradition has such in-depth that her anger is anger of God, even though for some prophets it wasn't, and her satisfaction is a satisfaction of God, that whatever she desires, God will, in this, as we have in other traditions, that whatever Ahlul Bayt will, Allah wills as well. Their will is one, meaning that they reach such a position, there's no nafs, ego in it. There's no selfishness in their intentions anymore. If they're satisfied because they have knowledge and sincerity, it is exactly what Allah wants. So therefore, we ask Allah very, sincerely to get the shafa of Sayyidah Fatima.
إذا وقعت الواقعة ليس لوقعتها كاذبة خافضة